Well, hello everyone, this is Janet Renniff-Miller and I'm doing a little Create with Fibre video today on which carders to buy. It's a question that comes up from spinners, new ones and more experienced ones quite often when I teach spinning courses. Of course, not every spinner does card wool. It's perfectly possible to buy pre-carded fibre or pre-combed fibre and just use that, which is why the question comes up from more experienced spinners as well. Obviously, some people have been spinning for quite a while before they decide to process and card and spin fleece from the raw product off the sheep. So, which carders do you want? Well, carders are these, as you will no doubt know. They have a flat wooden back or a curved wooden back, a handle, and then on the front you've got carder teeth. And these teeth come in different sizes, so you might see on websites that you've got 72 point or 48 point carders, and both will work fine. I find that if you buy 72 point, you can use them for practically anything. So for carding even things like Angora or cotton, if you use a certain method, you can actually card with these carders. So whether they're curved or whether they're flat is purely a matter of choice. And there's been some debate about carders in the Create with Fibre community, so if you're not already part of that, you might want to pop over and pay us a visit and just have a look at some of the threads there and just see what people prefer. And obviously there's other places you can ask about that, but you're very welcome to ask questions in the community about anything like that at all. So these ones are a sort of standard size carder, and what's important is the depth from top to bottom, because that's the way that you're going to lay the staples of fleece. So sometimes you see smaller carders that are actually narrower that way, which isn't ideal because you can't use them for such long fleece. It becomes very difficult if the fleece is overhanging the front edge of the carder by too much. You get different makes of these. As I said, whether they're curved or flat doesn't really matter. Which make doesn't really matter either, because ironically you can pay a lot more money for a posh pair of carders, which is fine if you want a nice pair, or a nicer pair made of maple or different wood, but in actual fact, chances are they've got the same card clothing as this with the teeth is called on them, so it's not going to make any difference to how they work. This other pair I have here are made by a company called Toika, and they're supposed to be very good because they have leather backs and therefore the teeth are more yielding, but actually I find they're a bit harder to work with. The teeth are a little bit catchy, they catch the wool fibres a bit more and they get themselves in different directions and have to be straightened up. So I would say just get standard boring old wooden carders with rubber backed card clothing and you will be fine. So cheap or expensive, they all work basically, and they all work perfectly well. So you'll get Ashford ones, Louet ones, Magicraft ones, etc. And you'll be able to get carders from most spinning companies online. So again, they're all perfectly good, and quite a few make their own, like Hedgehog or Scottish Fibres or Wing and Wool Works make their own, and the Wheel U have some very nice Magicraft carders as well. If you want something a little bit more beautiful, they have some really lovely ones. One of the factors to look out for is the weight of the carders. If you have any sort of wrist or hand problems, you may struggle with the heavier carders. These lovely little carders here are Louet mini carders. They have the same depth there to there, but they're narrower that way. And the teeth are also a little bit finer on these. Now they do work for any fibre still, but for very fine fibres that can be an advantage because they're not as likely to pill to make little neps in the fibre. They're really light and easy to work with, so if you do have a hand problem, then that's something to think about. Ashford also do a small one. Theirs is a little bit narrower that way and wider that way, but still very good, and it's made from laminate, so it's extremely light. This is a pair of flat small carders which are made by Scottish Fibres, and they're also very good and nice and light to work with. So lots of choices out there if you do have a hand problem or want something that's not so heavy. So what I would say is ask the weight when you're looking at carders, and that's a good thing to find out about from the manufacturer. So another thing we have here is actually called a flick carder. And I should say at this point, whether it's a flick carder or a set of 2 carders, the one thing you don't want is an actual pet shop product. So like the ones for combing cats and dogs with are not so great. For the 2-handed carders, the little pet shop ones are just not big enough. But the main problem, whether it's a flick carder or the 2-handed carders, is that the teeth are not as deep and they're very, very fine. So they just don't work as well. I think if there's one thing it's worth spending the money on, other than your spinning wheel or a spindle, it's actually getting a set of carders. For longer fibre, you can use this flick carder, but you can also use a dog comb and it'll work just the same. It's just a bit more work. So with the flick carder, you're actually hitting the fibre. You're using it for long fibre, you're holding it very firmly and hitting it like that. I'll do a demo of that some other time. But just to say, again, pretty much any flick carder will do. They're normally flat rather than curved, but it's not going to matter which it is. This is the dog comb. You would use it a similar way, just starting at the tip of the fibre for very long fibres and working your way slowly up. Okay, so that's a little bit about all the different kinds of carders. Some people ask, do they need wool combs as well? Well, no, probably not at the beginning. You can get wool combs and you can use them, but most people find they're not a product they use as regularly as carders. We're all different though, so some people do love them. So I'm just going to show you 2 or 3 different sorts of wool combs, just so you have an idea what's out there. The main thing with these is that you get ones with fine tines and you get ones with thicker tines. So these are Magicraft mini combs, but they have nice firm tines. So although they're small, you can use them for pretty much any fibre, as long as it's long enough. It needs to be 3 inches or longer to use it for these. So these are a good robust product that are very versatile and yet also small. These other ones here, whoops, I've just dropped one of them, but you can see the other one, are what's called Viking combs. And you can see that they have 2 rows of teeth. You can get the Magicraft mini combs with 2 rows of teeth. But I tend to think they're a little bit harder to work with than the single row, and they're also more expensive. So I guess I think that there's just as much use in the single row ones. However, these Viking ones have longer teeth and they're bigger. They have a little stand that one comb can go on, and then you can work with the other comb. They're a good value product and they're not as expensive as some of the larger combs. So again, they're a good thing to get if you do want to go in the direction of combs. But like I said, a standard set of carders will do most people to start with. And you will find that if you get a set of carders and you're not sure what to do with them, remember I did a Create with Fibre Facebook Live video on how to card about 10 days ago. And that is in the Create with Fibre community on Facebook, and you can access that at any time as well. Just one more set of combs to show you, and these are Louette mini combs. These are a very different animal to the Magicraft mini combs and the Viking combs that I just showed you. So the different thing about these is they have delicate little tines. They're absolutely wonderful if you want to do fine spinning or work with very fine fibres, and you can use these to make little rovings that are lovely and delicate, that can be used for spinning fine yarns. So a different thing, but a very useful tool actually if you want. Now sometimes people share sets of combs. Some of the guilds and spinning groups buy combs and have them available for members. My own guild, Dumfries and Galloway, Guild of Weavers, Spinners and Dyers, has a set of 5-row English wool combs, which is a great tool, but one that not many people use frequently. So that's another little tip there, that just share these things or ask your guild if they would like to get them, rather than feeling that you've got to have a huge collection of different kinds of carders and combs for everything. I'm just going to show you one more thing, going back to carders, which is how to condition them. If you get a new set of carders, these little metal teeth have all been cut, and if you feel them, they'll feel really quite rough. So when you use them, what can happen is that the fibre catches on them and it trails and makes everything untidy. Very simple to rectify. Just get some sandpaper rub it vigorously all over them in all directions, and you'll very quickly find that they're a lot smoother and easier to work with. So that's a good tip for you there with the carders and what you can actually do. You'll sometimes hear people saying that you need to mark these carders left and right and always keep them in the same hand because they become used to which way to let go. Well, I've tried it and it makes no difference, and most spinners these days would agree that it doesn't really make a difference at all. You really would have to use them an awful lot as well for it to make a difference, and if you condition your carders with sandpaper, that's the most important thing. If you buy a second-hand spinning wheel, you'll sometimes get a second-hand pair of carders with it. And sometimes it's been used to card unwashed fleece, and over time the suint and the grease off the fleece has set into the carders, so they're all sticky and dirty. Now, it's very difficult to do anything about that on a drum carder, but on a hand carder, if they're not working very well, you can actually condition them. It's a little bit of a risk, but you've not got much to lose anyway, because you can buy new card clothing for them. So if everything else fails, you can contact a company like Hedgehog Carding Equipment, Scottish Fibres, and get new card clothing to put on them. And that is a lot cheaper than buying new carders. But before you do that, what you can do is get a tin of WD-40, spray it rapidly all over the carders, and then use some waste fleece to card vigorously, and you should find that quite a lot of the dirt and gunk will come out. You want to do it quickly, and you don't want to put too much on because it will soak through the card clothing, through the little holes where the teeth are, and then that can swell the wood underneath. So just do it rapidly, don't spend too long on it, and it should really help if they're not in very good condition. If they've gone rusty, then probably it might make a bit of difference if it's not too bad, but if it's too bad, I would spring the £15 and get yourself a new set of card clothing to put on the carders. And again, you'll find that 72 point or 48 point is fine, but I would go for the 72 point because it's going to give you a more versatile set of carders to work with. So I hope that's helpful, and do post any questions you've got, and I'll be posting this video afterwards as well so that people can access it again if they want to. So happy spinning. Do look out for our spinning courses. If you want a beginner's course or an improve your spinning, we've got 2 in January in Ayrshire, and we've got 2 in February in Midlothian in Pennycook. So hope to catch up with you again soon with another video, and thanks for watching.